Hello, everyone. It's Lydia with the Oneness Junkie podcast and YouTube channel. And I'm here tonight with Leigh Angel. Hi, Leigh Angel.
Hi, Lydia.
Welcome back to the episode. This is episode number 2 of Ask the Angels Anything. So we're so glad for Leanne and her gift of working with the angels. So I was talking to Leigh Angel before we got started, and I told her that I wanted everyone to kind of hear what is bringing her forward at this time and what is pulling her to this opportunity for us to be asking the angels anything. So why don't you introduce yourself and let everybody know why you're doing this?
Sure, thank you. So I'm the angel, and I took that name just because I've loved angels my whole life and felt connected to them. Um, in the last, I would say year or so, I started really communicating with them in a more personal way through automatic writing. And I got really good at that. I got some great information and I got really used to their energy around me. And then at probably I would say 3-4 months ago, they said it's time to take it up a notch. And that when they said that, they mean we're asking you to talk. And I was kind of like, whoa, can I even do this? But they had confidence in me. They have confidence in all of us. Let's just say that. And so here I am, kind of just stepping out and really we want to say coming out of the spiritual closet in a lot of ways. A lot of people don't know that I even do this. So this is very new, but it's also really exciting. And the thing that they told me when I first started doing the automatic writing with the angels was that they want to be more accessible to us. Through most of us, our experiences with religion and, you know, um, things like that, angels are something that's like far away, or we can't see them. They're not they're not accessible. So they want us to reach out to them more, to think of them as just friends, nothing higher than us, nothing grander than us, just helpers. So that's what I'm being asked to do at this point.
I love that word helpers. That's exactly the word that I was thinking when you were talking. I was like helpers, and then you said it, and I was like, oh, we're
Right.
connecting. So,
Absolutely.
so I wanted to just mention to everyone that, we all go through that feeling of when I was first starting this podcast, I was audio only. I wasn't on video. And so it was challenging for me to want to get up on YouTube and get on video because it was easy to do audio. I could just show up with, messy hair and my pajamas and y'all wouldn't even know. Now I actually have to put lipstick on or something. So it is challenging for everyone. Even the people that look like they're comfortable behind the camera, it's still a challenge because we're putting ourselves out there. So I commend you, Leigh Angel, for stepping into your calling. And before we hit record, we were both talking about the purpose of us coming together and doing this is really to help raise the vibration of the planet so that we can have that 30%, so that we can give what we need to the earth to make that big leap and that big shift. And change doesn't happen without a little bit of upset sometimes. You got to upset the apple cart to rearrange it and reorganize it. So if you want to get into your space, I'm going to get ready to ask a few of my questions and we'll just dive right into that. Are you ready, Leigh
I'm
Angel?
ready.
Okay,
I'm
good.
ready.
So we'll just be quiet for a little bit and then I'll just start. You can let me know when it's time.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Okay, so we are good to go. I thought we might try something a little bit different today. I've got Archangel Michael standing next to me, and I just said, Are you ready?" And he said, "I'm ready." So let's ask some questions and get some good answers.
Awesome. So, for me, these are my questions. For me personally, I have friends and colleagues who were, recently upset just a month ago by, I would say, like a fourth of the country is scared and concerned about the leadership because three-fourths of the country voted for the leadership. And I was just wondering if the archangels have any messages that could provide those who are in fear and those who are concerned about what they're seeing and what they're feeling. What would the angels tell us about what we are going through as a country and or earth right now in this time space reality?
Okay. So already he is giving you a little pat on the back for the upside down apple cart metaphor, because he said that's really what it's like. In order for changes to come about, you do have to upset the apple cart, and so it's uncomfortable for that. Any kind of change, he's saying, is going to be uncomfortable, but he says the most important thing to remember as the world seems to be shifting all around us is to remember that that you're a sovereign being, that you're empowered. People pay attention so much to what's occurring around them in the outside world that they forget to pay attention, he says, to what's happening inside of them. And so he is asking and suggesting that those who are worried, or maybe those who are feeling some fear, instead go within and look inside instead of paying attention to the without. Because once they get inside, that's where he's calling it like a safety womb, like this, like where there's a space of safety, of peace, where the divine dwells. So if you can catch yourself in a moment of fear, like let's say you go out into the world and something awful has happened, somebody has done something, someone of the leaders has made a mistake or done something you don't agree with, for example. Rather than becoming outraged at that thing, because all that energy does, he's saying, all that energy does is just feed what's already occurring. It feeds the machine. That's the phraseology I'm getting. It feeds the machine. We don't want to feed the machine. We want to starve the machine. And that's what's creating, because so that's what will usher in the new energy. So he's saying if you can catch yourself in this moment of, oh, I'm so mad about this thing, and just release that. You can acknowledge it. We're human. He's saying acknowledge it, but then just let it go and turn within. Turn to the divine spark that's within you. He's saying, look at your heart. Like turn within to this space in the center of your chest where love resides within you. And just be there for a minute and just take a few breaths, relax, and just let that peace kind of like fill up the energy field all around you. And when you can do that, now all of a sudden, you're outside of the feelings of anger. You're less invested, and he's even using this word invested, in what's happening around you. You're starting to detach from that reality that you don't want and going within to look for what is the reality I do want. And how do I connect with that and then bring that forth? Because he's saying that like we get caught up in this idea that we can't affect change because we're only one person, right? But that is so far from the truth, because he's acknowledging, he makes me feel emotional about this because he's even acknowledging my own power. He's saying, even you, like you have learned all this stuff over all these years, but even you don't acknowledge your own power to affect change, you know. But he said, even just stopping and pulling back and away from fear and anger and going into love is huge, because that ripples throughout all of the universe, throughout all of eternity. He said, we have no idea how important we are on an individual and collective, but in this case, an individual basis within the whole of the one, of the universes, of all of everything, you know, of all the galaxies, of all the other civilizations. We all bounce off of each other. And I'm not speaking about just the Earth, because I know we talked a little before we got online about open contact. And so here he goes, you know, and he's talking about, it's not just humanity, there's many civilizations. And as we are all creating our individual realities, we are affecting one another because we're all in part of the one. Do you want to, I'm going to stop there and let you ask some more questions, but how, you know, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna and you know, we're cultivating this session that we're doing, this episodes, and people are welcome to join us and ask their questions.
Yes.
I'm going to utilize the podcast like a dialogue so we can discuss these topics. And so what I want to share about what y'all just said to me is that what comes to mind for me is that, and I say this on the podcast, when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. And so conceptually, we can think, oh, when Lydia focuses on herself in Houston, Texas, how is that affecting the Gaza Strip? You know, like it's not, right? Like I don't have a connection. But if we collectively all work on ourselves, what is ours to do, which is right here in front of me and in my life and in my world, and that's with the people I engage with, the people that I come in contact with, the people that I touch in my life, then that is like a ripple. It's like throwing a pebble in the ocean, and those ripples go out all the way throughout the Gulf of Mexico, you know, and affect can hit Mexico eventually. You know, like the concept is do it here and then let your love and your light shine, which then affects the next person and the next person. And it becomes an energetic vibration frequency ripple throughout the universe. And that's how it can be effective. So what do you think about that?
I mean, and you guys got to know this about Archangel Michael. He is the most fun. You know, he's such a cool guy, and he's telling me right on, Lydia, which it's very cute. That's him.
Oh, it
That's
is a discussion. We're discussing it back and forth.
Yeah, he's like right on. And he's also wanting to just expand on that in the sense that he's showing me, and a lot of people have talked about this, but he's showing it to me now. Like you've got planet Earth, and it's like floating in the space, and all around it is just grids, like a weaving. It's not even grids. I want to call it like a tapestry of light. It's just like running all around the planet, and it's very beautiful. It's like this beautiful golden light. And he's saying that, you know, as Earth is going through these changes, as humanity is growing up a little bit, the angels and many other non-physical beings who are here to help us add their light to the planet in this way. They add their light. But he's saying that as you, like, let's say the example of Lydia taking care of herself, doing self-care, help, you know, taking good care of your body, taking good care of your life, doing work on self-forgiveness, and then, you know, being kind to your neighbor because maybe they're having a bad day, just the small things. Those things, yes, your metaphor is right about the ocean and the ripple, because eventually that ripple is going to hit Europe somewhere, you know, energetically. But also it's going all across the planet. It's adding, when you're adding light to your individual world, you're adding light to the world. And so you can't underestimate, he's just reminding us not to underestimate our individual ability to affect change just by shining our own lights in whatever way we can, and he is, again, he's coming back around to that idea that we mentioned before of accessibility. He's saying you have so many helpers in the non-physical. Each person has their own like team of non-physical helpers who are waiting. They're like, please give us a job. We want to help. And so tell us what you need. And so it's fine to, even if you feel like a weirdo, stand in the middle of your living room and say, hey, angels, I need help with this today. Can you help me? And then start to learn how to listen for guidance. That's the part where you go within. But he's just reminding us that they're not far away. They're literally right here and they want to help, but they can't until we give permission.
So that creates my next question, which is, can the angels tell us how can we ask for help in order to receive it? How should we ask for help?
Yeah. He says they literally don't care. Like there's not.
That's funny. I love it.
I know.
He is a funny one.
He is. No, he tells dad jokes sometimes. I mean, he is funny. But yeah, he's like, however you want. I mean, they hear you. So, and if you feel like, he is saying though, that there's something about the resonance of the human voice that, because it is a frequency, it creates frequency. And so there is merit to actually singing or speaking out loud, or whatever you want to do in that way.
Heard that, to say it out loud. Like there's no more powerful voice than your voice.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's saying if you're comfortable doing it that way, that's really, really great. That's good. But if that's not your thing and you want to go and like do this in a little closet and be quiet, that's okay too. Then they hear you. They know, because you're creating frequency no matter what.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. So what happens when you ask for something, like, say you ask for a job and you don't get, not a particular job, but you're like, hey, I need a job. I want more money in my life. What do I need to do to get a job? Angels, I need your help.
Yeah.
Can they tell us, like, what is happening when it doesn't happen the way you think it should? What is actually happening if you ask the angels for help and that it looks like you're not getting it?
Yeah. So they're wanting to talk about one little thing first before we go into that. So they're talking about the alignment of our will with the alignment of the divine will. And so, and angels, like a lot of, I've got Archangel Raphael coming in too, by the way, because he likes to talk about abundance. But what they're saying is that a lot of like religion, folklore, whatever you want to call it, gives the idea that angelics do not have free will. It is true they were created with a different purpose than, say, like a human soul. They have a different purpose, but that doesn't mean that they can't deviate from the will of the divine if they want to. Like they can do that. It's just that they are so aligned with divine will. They're one with divine will, and so therefore it looks like they have no free will. But the truth is, really, they've just chosen to fully align with the divine. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So he's saying when they're coming back around to your question, that when we are asking the divine for a thing, say a job, they're just suggesting that many times we try to control how that happens. Like in our mental, we get into our heads and we're like, well, it has to be this kind of job and it has to have these certain hours and it has to be this amount of money, you know. And where it is helpful to tell the universe what you want, what's not helpful is controlling every aspect of the journey once you've stated the intention. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So then they're saying what you have to do is you state your intention. You say, this is what I would like in my reality. And then Archangel Raphael told me one time in automatic writing about this thing he calls the path of yes. And I loved it because it was so simple. He's like, basically, after that, you just start saying yes. And you look for opportunities that arise and you go, yes. And then you follow that path. You just get on that little path. And then that path may take you to the next stop. It's like riding a bus, like from one stop to the next until eventually you get to your destination. But you stay on the bus. You just keep saying yes. And then the universe likes to create this, like, it's almost like a game if you'll let it be, and fun if you'll allow it to be, that takes you on a journey towards the thing that you are asking for. Does that make sense? But
Yeah.
but but the human, what the human mind will do, because it'll drop into fear. What if this doesn't happen? What if it's not enough money? What if I don't, what if it doesn't, come in time and I can't pay my bill, or whatever it is. We drop into this energy of fear. And then once we get scared, we're like trying to scramble around trying to control how it's going to happen. But they're asking us to, like, first of all, try like I said before, try to, like, if you start to feel fear, just breathe, come into your heart, come within, have a little conversation with the divine, take a breath, and then say, okay, something much bigger than me is not only within me but also in control of this situation. And then let the universe start weaving the journey, and just say yes, and just say yes, and keep saying yes until eventually you get where you want to be, you know. Yeah, I mean,
So
does that answer question?
yeah. So it brings up discussion. So
Yeah.
the other day I was listening to Sheila, who is doing channeling Theo, and Theo said that a lot of times we only have our imagination and our experiences to draw from to bring about, like, the job or the way to make the money or whatever, when in fact, creation and divinity has more to draw upon and from, and could be creating something beyond your wildest dreams. And so having the trust, the faith, the patience, keeping your vibration up to be a frequency to that up here, you got
Right.
to frequency yourself up to match up with what your true desires are. And I would say, just from my own awareness and guidance, and this is just dialogue to share for our listeners, that in some cases, you may be telling your conscious mind is saying, oh, I need to get a job and I need to make this much money to live. But really your subconscious mind is like, I don't really want to work. I just want to have money and live free and not have to be on a schedule. Like, that's what your subconscious mind frequency is. So if you can get in touch with your subconscious mind frequency and then be able to raise that up to the frequency where that actually happens, instead of telling yourself you want a job that you make this amount of money because your fear is guiding this level, but your truth is here. So it's like getting authentic. Like, I've heard that, like, the highest vibration over love even is authenticity. And so if you can really get clear about what your true authentic desires are, you
Mhm.
may end up manifesting them faster,
It
you
could,
know?
yes, absolutely. And I think, you know, and yes, everything you said, they agree with. And Archangel Raphael is just suggesting the idea of the path of yes for those who like get too caught up in their own heads about things. Like if and it just sort of takes away all of how does he want to say this? It takes away the anxiety. So that's what he's saying. So like any kind of anxiety that comes up around, oh, I want to create this, but how's it going to happen? Just you take that to the side and you just start saying yes, and you just simplify it to the point where I'm saying yes, and then the more I say yes, the more, like you said before, you start to line up frequency wise with the thing that you truly want, because now you give the permission of the angels that are around you, spirit guides, you give divine will the permission to manifest the highest good in that particular situation. And as you say yes, maybe they build your confidence a little bit, like this next step for, say, somebody who really doubts, like they just don't know how it's going to happen. Each time you say yes, it's like a little confidence boost, and now your frequency goes up, and then you say yes, and then something else cool happens and you're like, oh, this is cool, and then your frequency goes up, and it's more of an incremental way of doing it for maybe those who have a harder time manifesting what they want. But it's just a great, almost like a game that you can play that will eventually create enough frequency, like you said, to align yourself with that thing that you really want, or in many times something even more amazing than what you can imagine. And that's, they're saying, Raphael in particular is talking about, we short we're short-sighted a lot because we don't know, like we can't see the way the divine can. And he's also saying, I've got both of them now talking about, that's another reason for the merits of coming within. And then, which when you will focus within, instead of like always looking at the outer world going, oh, like what do I need to do next, like what's the next thing, if you'll focus within, that's where the answers are. That's where the big vision is. That's where the divine can be like, oh, well, you want to do that, but look at this idea. What do you think about this? Right. And it'll come in through that heart center. It'll come in. And then now you have some new information. You're like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. Maybe we want to do that instead. And then you start going down that path of yes. You see what I'm saying? And so, yeah, I mean, it builds upon itself. And I think people just, again, and I know I do it, I get in my head about stuff, and then that stops the energy. But if you can just get out of your head, get here in your heart, look within, and then just start saying yes to whatever's coming, cool things start to happen. And they love it. They love it. They get so excited on the other side when we let them throw little clues, and they love to play the game. They really do. And it's fun, and it creates joy, along the way too, which is that beautiful thing that creates the frequency that aligns us with what we want, right?
So I have a physical manifestation story, which is always fun for people to hear. That is a scenario that's aligns with what we just talked about, and it happened today. So I'll tell this quick story. So as some of you know, my 17-year-old dog just passed away last week, and we had a great life together. In fact, I gave her the best life I could possibly afford. And even in some cases, like I afforded a life that I couldn't even afford, but I gave it to her anyway. So like I bought this I spent $131 on a bag of dog food that just made her have a high quality of life. And I was willing to spend that because we stayed out of the vet during her senior years, and it really gave her a higher quality of life. And so every time I bought the bag and I spent that much money, I was like, I wonder if she's going to pass away soon. And then I'm going to be wasting this $135. So the bag had like 2 scoops out of it, and it was still a big 80 ounces. worth of dog food. So the bag was, this big. And I posted it online to sell the bag for half the value. So the bag had at least $100 worth of dog food still left in it. And I posted it for $50. And so people started chiming in that they wanted to buy the dog food because they knew that it was a value, and I was like, let me get at least $50 for this, instead of nothing. And so I communicated with so here's my limitation. Like I'm thinking, oh, I can only get $50. I can only have this kind of job, So I posted it for $50 thinking that that would be better than nothing. So like, oh, getting any kind of job would be better than having no job. So here's my, analogy, my metaphor. So as I was communicating, I had a buyer. And then all of a sudden, like, because she had a senior dog and she fed it to her dog. And so she knew what a value it was. So she was like, I'm going to get this dog food for half the price. And so she wasn't getting back with me. And you know how Facebook marketplace buyers are. They say they want something and you lose all your other opportunities to sell it. And so the fact that she hadn't communicated back to me and the time was getting closer and closer, this other lady chimed in and started asking me questions about it. And she goes, Pet Supplies Plus is really good with their return policy. You should call them and see if they'll just take it back. And I was like, what? They'll take back open dog food and I'll get full refund, 131 back instead of $50. And she was like, you should try it. So I called them. And the other lady, the buyer, was supposed to be there by 4:30. This was on the 4:00 hour. And I hadn't heard from the lady and it was traffic. And so I called Pet Supplies Plus and I go, what's your return policy on open dog food? And she goes, it has to be within 30 days from the time you bought it. And I was like, check. You have to have your receipt. And I was like, check. And then you had to have at least 30% of the dog food left in the bag. And this bag had 90% of the dog food. And I was like, I qualify. And so I drove right up there by 4:10 and I had my 131.26 or whatever it was put back on my card with handing them a 2 scoops out of it bag of dog food. And so the universe had, beyond my wildest dreams, I didn't know I could return open dog food that was missing dog food and get a full refund, So that all lined up at the final hour at the last minute and it exceeded my expectations. And so I texted the lady that was going to buy it and I go, you know what? I just found out I could get full refund for this. So I'm going to get $131 instead of $50 from you. And she's like, oh, that's fine. No problem. She understood like the math, like that's what she would want for herself. So if it had been after 30 days, which was 5 days away, then it wouldn't have qualified like that. I wouldn't have met all the criteria, but I met the criteria and I was able to get something I wasn't even imagining was possible for me. So I'm just using that analogy as a way to say, don't shut yourself off from the impossible happening in your life and be open to miracles happening, right?
Absolutely. Yes. That was a great demonstration. And, they chime in and they say like, how do you know that that lady who came and told you, have you thought about just trying to return the bag? Like who do you know, one of your angels didn't like stick that little thought in her head. Hey, remind Lydia she can return the food. Like they're always working behind the scenes to try to bring us our best outcome. And when we just allow it, when we get into a space and say, you know what, I'm cool. Like, you guys know what I want. The universe knows what I want. I'm on the path. Let's do this. And then you just sort of open yourself up to all kinds of great possibilities that will manifest what, even better than what you thought you could do. We in our human minds put limitations on ourselves. And that's part of, learning how to allow for greater possibility is something that they help us with, that our teams of guidance want to help us with. And coming back around to world um, world changes. The more people that we can encourage through our conversation, through this dialogue, and any other way that we can to remember that we have the power to be creative and that we are divine individuals and that we do have the potential for incredible good and positive growth, the more that it helps to make the coming transitions smoother. So like they're saying again, they're wanting me to say it again. You are more powerful in your choices and in your lives than what you realize. Because as you are going through even just your own life, living your own reality, you are creating energy. And when you are doing it in a co-creative, aware, intentional way, it's like the frequency is like on high volume, if that make so it's kind of like
All the way up.
all the way up, like, so yeah. And so like you can live your life just sort of floating along the stream, just doing whatever happens to come to you and not really engaging with life itself. But when you start getting to that point where you realize, hey, I don't have to just like go sit in that 9 to 5 job that I hate, because that's what society tells me I'm supposed to do, you know, and you start realizing that you have choices and that you can create what you want, then that energy gets so ramped up. And then that starts to seep out, it ripples out into the world around you. And it does help when we're going through political turmoils or wars are happening somewhere in the world that are creating negative energy. You just by being yourself and you just by sitting in your own heart energy and your own sovereignty is creating the energy that like cancels that out, you know?
Yeah.
So this is just something that they're like wanting me to just say it again.
Yeah. And when you said earlier that they're saying, the angels know what you want, I want to add that they actually also know what you need. And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
turning it back to the first question that we asked about why is this happening, I am approaching the circumstances of what's happening in the universe with the attitude of I don't know everything. And I believe in the oneness and the power that guides and directs everything. And I have faith and I trust that the bigger picture as it is at play,
Mm-hmm.
and that I'm going to just live in my faith that this is happening, even as we've been told the bad stuff can happen for our greatest good. So if you live from that perspective, any type of fear, or I mean, even fear in our own personal lives that are just happening on the daily, if you can just look at everything as happening for your greatest good, it takes the sting off of the energetic sting off of the experience.
Absolutely. Yes. And just to take that a little bit further, again, they're just reminding you and everyone that, you know, changes and shifts happen, right? They happen all the time. But there are different, and we'll just call it timelines because I know that's a popular phrase in the community. Different timelines are occurring, different like realities are happening, kind of like all pancaked on top of each other. And as humanity is moving down its current timeline, it is constantly choosing, like second to second, and we're talking about the collective, where it's going to go next in all these different timelines that it can choose, right? So he's just saying that one thing we can do as sovereign beings, and you can do and I can do, is that as we are moving along as a collective, we can just continue to choose the most loving, highest timeline for ourselves. Because, and it kind of goes back to that tapestry of light around the world. Like when we do that, we are literally adding light and energy and love to the collective that lifts it. So again, they're just reminding all of us that even individually, we are so powerful because we are adding our light and our love to this thing called the collective. And so as we consciously do that, we're shifting those timelines to better outcomes little by little by little. And so what might have been a tsunami, somewhere could have just been like, a little wave instead. It can change. So like we have the ability,
We have the power to change.
power, and it doesn't matter like Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, Netanyahu over in on his side of the world, anybody. It almost doesn't. I want to say this carefully because people get mad at me, but it almost doesn't matter, because as we're individually expressing our own sovereignty in our own lives, like we're shifting the whole, right? So whoever's in office, like they might do what they might do for a period of time, but ultimately it's going to be okay because at some point the collective is going to tip over the edge and say, you know what, we don't want that anymore. We're tired of this paradigm. And it's going to shift, and it will.
Well, and it did in the 2020 election. It shifted the other side.
Yeah.
Because we had this side in power, and then it went to the other side, and it was there for a while, and then it shifted back. So like just get comfortable with change.
Yeah. Well, and I'll give another example of something that happened recently. Remember a few months ago when Hurricane Milton was like almost like a category 6, which doesn't even exist. And it was such a powerful storm and it was bearing down on Florida. And I don't know if you remember this, but like it seemed like in a few hours it shifted from a 5
or 3 when it hit
whatever,
landfall.
3. Yeah. And I remember I was praying for it because I'm like, oh my God, this is bad. And I was like, let me pray. And I was praying. And I think and then I heard other people talking about how they prayed.
Yeah.
And all these people
Praying
were,
for all the Florida people.
yeah, because we didn't want those people to
Well,
lose their
and we
homes.
know what bad hurricanes are like.
Yes. And so I thought it was very interesting that within just a few hours that hurricane like fizzled when they said it was going to be that bad. And then it still caused damage, but it wasn't nearly what it.
And it didn't hit where it was supposed to have hit either. So I hope that your internet comes back. We got stuck. Leanne got stuck with her internet. So we're going to hang out here for a second and see if her internet comes back on and it's unfrozen. That's so funny. Talk about alternate realities. I want to go back to the reality where Leanne's internet is working. Lee Angel. So, Leanne, I don't know if you can hear me, but if you can hear me, you can pull out and then come back on to this channel. Oh, yeah, there you go. Maybe she heard me. She went out and then she can come back in and I could put her back in and we could say goodbye because we've been talking for 43 minutes on this one subject. And I actually had 2 other questions I was going to ask, but they're about a whole nother topic. And I don't feel like doesn't feel right to start this other topic. I think I'm just going to save it for episode 3 of the next episode, asking the angels anything for a conversation. So hopefully Leah Angel can come back in. Let's see if she's texting me, guys. Hang on a second. Yes. Um I'm texting with her. We'll see if she'll pop back in. So if not, then we'll just have to end. We'll have to come back in. Yeah, her side was stuck. She was stuck on her side. So she's coming back. So anybody, y'all feel like y'all want to join us for Ask the Angels? We'll do it again next Tuesday evening. It is 7 p.m. Central that we do it. And she is 5 p.m. Central when we get started. And she said her internet is down, so we're going to just wrap it up. But y'all come back, and she's up in the mountains in California, so the internet's kind of a little iffy out there in the rural area. So I will say goodbye for now. You guys come join us for an Ask the Angels live event. You can ask your questions to the angels with us anytime. Reach out. You can go to onenessjunkie.com and email me any questions or information you want to know. All right. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Thanks for watching. Bye, everyone.